years. I mean, that's the goal. And if you're
Somebody
not
check their phone,
looking
make
to
sure
do
it's
it that way,
straight.
you're a coach or a player, then this isn't the place.
They call
So on YouTube, it
we
looks
started
great,
looking at
but on Facebook, it's just going to
not
show
like
the
if
two
they're in our
guys.
program, they need to be good enough to play on their high school team.
Yeah.
If they can't do that, then, if we're supposed to be developing kids to go into college someday, then they can't make their high school team. That's
We're
not one.
It's counterproductive for the program.
Completely.
No, I agree.
Just tell me when we start getting a couple listeners.
That's my thing too with the guys that we have on. I mean, I want guys.
See, the YouTube looks great. You can see it.
When we
over
talk
here.
to guys, I want guys that are here for the right reasons,
Facebook.
doing things the right way. And it's hard to find those guys. You got a lot of organizations, and it's all about money. It's all about this, that, and the other, and it's not about why we coach.
Right.
All right, as soon as we get a couple listeners, we'll get going. Anybody know what we're at? My phone's over there.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. All right, guys, we'll get started. Leave me alone.
What?
Let it cycle and now press record.
Yeah, don't forget that.
Yeah, it's pulsing.
So am I going in with the intro?
Yeah. Remember, travelsportsbaseball.com. The best tournament organization on earth. Travel Sports Cares.
About hunting.
I gotta let this cycle.
Just point to me when you're ready for me.
Yeah. Just one moment. I gotta let the whole damn song cycle.
Good morning. Welcome to DFW Baseball Talk. Today is January the 9th, show number 6. My name is Albert Nahara, and as always, my co-host is Joey Broussard, and we also have Don Myers at the controls, making sure that we sound good for you guys. We're going to get into some talk today. Our guests are Coach Jeff Sherman from Marcus High School, Flower Mound Marcus High School. He actually went to Marcus High School, also played at Paris Junior College. And is it Missouri Baptist? Missouri Baptist. He's been at Flower Mound Marcus for 8 seasons and is ready to go this season. I mean, you guys get started when?
The 31st. We start our first practice after school.
31st. Yeah, that's just right up the road, around the corner, ready to go. We also have Nick Heitz, is the founder of Sticks Baseball Club. He founded the Sticks in 2005. He also is associated with TPA baseball at a Grapevine, and Nick went to South Lake Carroll. Coaching now with the Sticks. What age group are you coaching now?
I usually stick with 16 you guys.
16, you guys. So you funnel them up.
Yeah, so I'll take them at 16. I'll pass them on to my partner Shane at 17. We've been doing that 3 or 4 years now.
Yeah. So today we'll get into some talk about high school baseball, select baseball, and how they intertwine with each other, what the relationship is like. And I think we all have pretty much feel the same way, that it's one of those relationships that could always be better. So we're going to talk about hopefully ways that we can make it better and get it to where it needs to be. I don't think we can make the decision or make it work overnight, but it's one of those discussions that needs to happen. And hopefully we can get more select coaches and high school coaches on board to get that done. Jeff, how are things going with you right now? What do you got going on besides baseball?
Well, yeah, we're doing tryouts right now. We're trying to set our varsity, and, obviously JV and freshmen. So from a baseball standpoint, that's what we're doing. And from a home life is I got 3 kids and a wife, and trying to stay, married and raise my 3 kids at the same time. Yeah, so a lot going going on, a lot of transition. You know, it's kind of like you drink from a fire hose this month. You know, because you're trying to make cuts and get your team going, and you know, and then you start scrimmages like February 2nd. So we go 31st, February 2nd. So it goes real quick. So yeah, we're getting fired up.
So speaking of drinking from a fire hose, do you have any kids on your team that could drink out of a hose, or do they prefer bottled water?
That's our motto.
I remember we turned on the hose one time, and you know, I took a drink out of it, and the kids looked at me like I was nuts, and I was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Oh, I guarantee you, they don't understand. You got to let it run 6 or 7 seconds, or it's hot in the summer.
Tastes like the rubber hose, but I mean, who didn't drink out of a water jug that had dirt on the bottom of it when it got to the bottom? That's just kind of the way it was, you know, so spitting out some little dirt and stuff like that. What are the ages of your kids?
11, 9, and 6. They're all in elementary school, so it's pretty easy right now. Drop them off one place and let's go.
There you go.
Yeah.
Boys, girls, mixed?
Girl, the oldest, and then boy.
Okay. They're not going to be baseball players, though.
So yeah, they love it.
Nick, what do you got going on? I know it's baseball all the time for you. What do you got going on besides baseball, if anything?
Well, it feels like not a lot now that the holidays are done. We had a pretty long holiday season. We took the kids out to Disney, came home. All of a sudden it's Christmas. My brother brings his kids in town and his family in town after Christmas, so we went a week past Christmas, still celebrating. So, you know, January 1st, it's like we can finally breathe again and everything's back to normal finally. But yeah, it was a pretty good holiday.
It's unbelievable what Christmas has turned into. I kind of equate it to a wedding. Build up for a year or whatever, and then it's done in one day for the most part, and you're done with it. So it's one of those things that people, it can give you some anxiety, I guess. Joey, what do you got going on?
Man, you know, you're talking about I love my kids to death, but there was not one person in my house more excited for my kids to go back to school than I was. Man, I work out of my house, and it's hard to get stuff done, make sure they get breakfast and lunch. It's a good thing you send them to school that's provided for them.
You're a great wife. I mean, you're a great wife. I know, right? Hey, we do want to thank Travel Sports for everything that they've done to be able to put this show on for us, to buy this great equipment. Hopefully we sound good for our listeners, but without them, there'd be no us. So we do thank you, Don and Domingo, for being able to give us a platform to talk about the sport that we love. Make sure you go to travelsports.com, sign up. Tournament registration is open. Go ahead and get that done, and you know, get those tournaments filled up so we can continue playing at good fields right now.
Yeah, you can go to playncs.com and look for the Travel Sports logo on the tournament.
Playncs.com. There you go. So we'll go ahead and get right into it. So, Coach, you talked about tryouts. Give me an idea of what your tryouts consist of. Now, I know that you see these guys at the beginning of the year. Y'all start going and they're working in the weight room and things like that, right?
Yeah. So the thing about us is we have a lot of kids play multiple sports as well. So we have about half our guys that are trying out play football or basketball, and they come in. Then the other half are in my period the entire time. And so, yeah, we do a strength conditioning in the mornings, 3 days a week. Performance course does that for us, and they because we can't coach them. And then I get them for the fourth period for us, and so we get about an hour and a half with them. And our school district does a really good job. They allow us in Louisville Independent School District. They allow us to have 2 periods for baseball. So I have a freshman period, and then I have a varsity period. So I have a lot of kids in both. I have 40 in one and 88 in another. So
oh man, I would love to have those numbers.
Yeah, without even the football guys. So yeah, we have a lot of guys.
So is your varsity, are they fourth period as well?
Yes.
How do you like that? Because I don't know about you guys, but when I was growing up, our athletic period was our last period of the day. We'd go right into that, and then school would let out, and we're going into practice and getting other things done. And how do you like in the middle of the day? I mean, I know you don't have any, but how do you like that setup?
Well, our freshmen go third period. So we only have 4 periods. So our freshmen go third period, and then third period, yeah, they have to go back into class. So you get timestamps. So you got to be really organized of like getting them on the field and getting the, skill set of whatever we're doing that day, or, if we're doing inter squad or whatever, getting those arms ready. And we're off campus by about a mile from the school to where we are. So we have a little bit of time that we have to work on as far as travel. And so, yeah, they have to go back and shower. But the fourth period, which is good, is like you just said, which I love, is that, they're going home after that. So they come to the field, and when they go, they're going home. So.
Yeah, that makes it a lot better, man, because I would have had to go get sweaty, work out, then go back to class. And in the middle of classes, you don't really have much time for any kind of anything. You got to stay on the schedule and get it done.
Yeah, you bust a hump. So I told we're going into your lunch period. So we go a little bit longer sometimes because they better have a sack lunch eating on the bus back to the place. So they're eating and showering at the same time to get to the fourth period class.
Now, do you have any guys that play multiple sports? Does it ever interfere?
Never. Not at
Never.
our school. I mean, it'll interfere, like selfishly, it'll interfere. You want them to develop and get better and do things, and you hope that they're going to train at like Nick's place or, a place down the road that they're getting their reps in, after football practice or basketball practice. But yeah, it never interferes. We have good coaches and people, obviously.
They work with each other to help.
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
And do you coach any other sports for the school?
I do not.
No, that makes it a lot easier too, huh?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
And Nick, so how do you and Coach Sherman, how do you guys know each other?
Just through this baseball world. I mean, I've had a number of Marcus kids come through our program about players a few years back, and ever since then, I think it's helped both of us. It helps me understand what I'm getting if it's a new player, and making sure we place them on a team, on the proper team, a team of guys around that are similar to them. Because when we try a kid out, you can see some measurables, but you can't see everything. So we're having to make a decision on the kid based on running a 60, throwing from their position, hitting in the cage, hopefully hitting on the field, but sometimes hitting on the cage. Put them on the mound for 10, 12 pitches. I mean, we have to make a decision on what team they go on based on that, and it's not real easy. So having that open line of communication with their high school coach can help with that quite a bit.
And you said, one thing that I always wonder about, and I talk to guys, and when we get to started talking, we kind of feel the same way. This in the 60, where did that even come from?
That's a good question.
I
ask the old pro guys.
I don't know where it came from or why it's even relevant to a certain extent. I mean, I understand we want to see guys run, want to see how they run, how fast they are, but if I got a guy that can swing it and can play the field, I mean, I really don't care how fast he is in his 60. I mean, what do you think about that?
I agree with that, but on the flip side, the guys that can run the 60 and they are fast, it usually translates into they're a good athlete and they're a good player. So we have plenty of players that don't run a 60 well that are really good though. So
and then you've seen guys.
You can't judge it based on just the 60.
Right. And then you see guys that run a 60 very well and they have issues with other things, right?
Oh, sure. Sure, but at least they can run.
Yeah. Coach, what do you think about that?
Well, I think that's why you have the 5 tools, so you're going to be deficient in one. All major leaguers are deficient in one usually. And so, you in how you're ranked on all of them, that mean that it labels you. The thing is you want to be consistent with, measurably in all of them, from, the power hitting or contact hitting or defense or arm speed and stuff like that. So, yeah, I don't think it really plays into a right-handed pitcher that throws 94 miles an hour. I don't think it really, he runs at 8.6, 60. I don't know if that's going to be a big play. I'm pretty sure like TCU and Texas and Oklahoma will not care about that. But like if you have a center fielder that runs a 7.4, I don't know if that's going to play real well. For if they're on speed, they want speed guys. That's going to be a measurable that they're going to rank real high as of the 5 tools. So
the guy that runs the 8.6, do you use a stopwatch or a sundial?
Don't run it, is what you do.
You just say you're okay. Don't even worry
Get
about
on the
it.
bump, baby, and let it fly. Yeah.
Exactly. Now, for you listeners out there, the main reason we wanted to bring Coach Sherman from Marcus High School and Nick Heitz, a select guy, we've all talked and wondered. There's a lot of misconceptions. There's a lot of truth, both sides to the relationship with high school coaches and select coaches. And one thing that we've kind of all talked about is the relationship between the two. I think a perfect word for it is it's kind of a strained relationship. It's one of those things where a lot of select coaches don't reach out to high school coaches. A lot of high school coaches don't reach out to select guys. Coach Sherman and Coach Heitz, I mean, you guys talk a lot about players, and I'm sure you don't just ask about players from Marcus. You probably talk about players from other schools that he may see when he's playing them. What is the problem with the relationship? Where do you think it's at right now, Nick?
I think it's a case by case basis on that. I would say there's going to be your select coaches that don't want anything to do with with what the high school coach is doing or what he's saying. And then there's going to be the high school coach that's not going to want to communicate with the select coach as well. So but that's not always the case. So I know that a few years back we've started to spend more and more time wanting to talk to the high school coach and get their feedback on us be able to do the same. We've got a kid from South Lake Carroll that this summer was 86, 87. All of a sudden, come fall, he's 90, 92. So I reach out to Buchan, like, did you know this guy's here? And he's like, I knew it was coming, and it's just good information for him to have, and because he's planning for his spring. But overall, I would say it's a case by case because there's definitely both sides of that.
And then, are there any other coaches that you reach out to and talk to?
Oh yeah, as many as I can. I mean, me and Jeff have been talking for a while, and then all the high schools around where we're pulling kids, we're communicating with. And we have. I was looking at it yesterday. I think we have like 8 high school coaches on our staff in the summer, something like that. And I think 4 of them are head coaches. So we actually value them to the point that we're hiring them to coach for the summer. And they're actually really the perfect guy for a summer job because they're off all summer. They can travel, they can be at anything. They can be at a Tuesday 10 a.m. practice, no problem, no day job. So they're actually a really good fit for what we need in the summer, and they're coaching as a profession. So, they're naturally going to understand how to at least coach up kids.
Right.
But whether we see things eye to eye on baseball all the time, that's stuff we work through and we hopefully learn from each other.
Right. And Jeff, do you have any other select coaches that reach out to you and talk to you about your players or anybody else's players?
Yes, we do. And yeah, I think I'm glad I'm here for this because I think this is an elephant in the room for everybody. I think everybody's kind of scared to kind of communicate on this because I think there is a rift between high school coaches and select coaches. And I think it's on both sides. And I can say it from and I think it comes down to pride a little bit because you want ownership of the kid and not looking at the kid's best interest on both sides.
Right.
And I'm saying that from even my side, as well. I got a guy that pitched 88 innings. He's playing for Nick, and Nick goes out there and pitches them 3 innings, and Nick wants him because he wants him to get him recruited. I'm sitting there going like, dude, you just pitched 88 innings. I don't want him to pitch. And then, he goes and pitches for Nick. Not to say that this ever happened, but I'm just saying I think that sometimes can be just from the player development side. And then the other side is I think high school coaches, we get our feelings hurt sometimes when, that maybe the kid doesn't like him or whatever it may be. And he goes plays for this. And then all of a sudden he comes back and he's not doing the things that, maybe a high school coach wants to do. And he goes back to this and I'll get, I think every single coach that goes into coaching, I think they get in there to impact and empower. And if we can go back to the basics of that and understand where both platforms are, I think it would be a whole lot easier. But I think that's going to take time. That's going to take a lot communication, and I think the reason why Nick does such a great job is his communication skills with them, because he values the player, he values the coach, he values the program, and that creates the relationship on his, and he goes out of his way to do that. And there's not every coach does that, not every program does it. There is programs that do that, and there's a lot of great guys in select baseball. In fact, there's a lot better. I'd almost say that there's a lot better baseball guys in select baseball than there are as head baseball coaches in the state of Texas. And just because how hard it is to be a high school head baseball coach with all the certifications and all these kind of things, and anyways, that's a whole nother story. But I think the thing is, I think we have to, as a culture and as a baseball culture, if our desire is to develop and empower kids to be the best player that they possibly can, there has to be open communication between a high school coach and the select baseball coach.
Yeah, so you just touched on it with communication, where coaches don't communicate, but don't you think that's beneficial when you do have a guy that threw so many innings and Nick's going to use him, or not Nick, I'm sorry, just any coach is going to use that guy. And isn't it good for you to reach out, or that coach to reach out to you to kind of see where that kid's at and make sure we're not overusing him, or maybe we can do some things different? I mean, maybe there's some things in the summer that you want to see him work on that he didn't have a chance to work on during the season.
And that's the thing that's tough, is because select baseball is so universal. Because now you have, let's go all the way up to USA Baseball, Perfect Game, and all these kind of things to get noticed and get these things. So Nick might have a tournament in Arizona. He needs 15 pitchers because they're playing for a whole week.
Right.
And he needs 15 pitchers. Well, he doesn't have 15 pitchers on a 16U team, so he needs to go pick up a couple guys. Well, he's going to go pick up maybe the best guys in the area. And one of those might be, I'm just using an example, it might be one of my guys. Hey, man, go up and pitch a couple innings over, and that's just how the circuit's working, And so I could be communicating, say he plays for the DBAT team, but he gets picked up for this tournament because DBAT's not playing this weekend. He goes to, the sticks team and goes out there. And I think that's where, sometimes the miscommunication happens, because our players are playing, if they're really good, they're going to play on different teams. And that's not just, and they might be playing for, an All-American team or whatever it is. I have a player right now that is going to play for Nick, actually, and he's going to be playing. He got invited to the PDP, USA to be maybe on the 18U national team, and so we have to be real careful this summer that we don't overplay him. He's a shortstop, and he might end up being on the USA team, because he's going to go for a month, come back, play for Nick, and then go back and all over the country. So
you probably know coaches that communicate both sides, some that communicate with select coaches and some that don't at all. And I'm sure this is something that you've talked to other coaches about. What are some of the negatives that they bring up as to why they don't either respect, or even just talk to the select coaches?
I think for me, and just being open and honest, I think what we get is a lot is we have a culture. Like for me, I have to win, and we have to bring a culture, and we're playing for what's in front of their chest, because they're playing in a zone and they're protecting that zone. For example, Marcus, we have a line, it has Louisville and Flower Mountain High School. And if you don't live in that line, you're going to Marcus. If you live in that line, you're going to Louisville. So we have you kind of think of it that way. And so these players have been raised and went to elementary school and middle school. And so you built this culture at your school for 4 years for them to compete for what's in front of their chest. They go play for the select team, and there's no accountability. For example, you just play games. There's no practice structure. They're not learning first and thirds and stuff like that because of how fast they play, And I'm not saying every team. I'm just saying, I think those are the stories that we hear from the negative side is the coach just sits on the bucket and doesn't coach and do those kind of things. He's getting paid to play or paid to do his work. And I think that's where the pride of a high school coach just looks at it from that view and that lens, instead of looking at the player's view of what's best for him. Because it's two different ways. One is he's dividing himself up for team. When he plays for Nick, he's going out there and he's fighting for a college scholarship, because there's not very many college guys coming to our baseball games because they're playing at the same time we are.
Yeah.
And so I know that. So here's another thing I want to make sure I mention on this right now is the 3 most influential baseball people in my life was not my high school coach. The most important person in my life was probably my high school coach. But baseball was 3 select baseball coaches. And I know that. And I know what they did for me and what they did for, the things that they did for me were unbelievable. And they made my game to where I was. I would have been just an average player, but for them, they made me the best player I possibly could have been to get to play college baseball. And, you're talking about average, all those specs, you said the 5 tools, I was below average on all of them, but somehow they forced me to get to a certain point. And so for me to know that, I know my players like under me, they're gonna learn life skills. They're gonna learn those things, how to go through adversity and stuff like that, try to fight for playing time. When they go play for them, I want them to play as much as they can, learn, but play for them, literally kind of for themselves a little bit as well, and try to earn that scholarship and fight for it and do the right things to respect the game.
And I think the one thing that a lot of parents don't understand is a college coach, when they're recruiting your kid, they not only want to talk to the select coach, which they probably got first seen by the select coach, but they're going to also call the high school coach because they want to see what goes on a day-to-day basis. Is this a good kid? What's his work ethic like? Things that us as select coaches, we don't know a lot of that stuff because we're not with them every single day. Like,
I'm glad you brought that question up because I think the best I've ever been around is Nick Heitz of communication to high school coaches. Hey, I was just at a tournament. Wichita State was there. He did this too. I mean, he's done it. I know he does to every team, not just me, but like he would call me. He's like, hey, if you get a chance, call the Wichita State coach. He was at our game. I talked to him this, and this. And that goes back to Nick. He cares more about the player than he does himself. And I think we all have to do that. Like, I know I have wins and losses and all that kind of stuff. That's the best player he can. So back to, they spoke on that. I think that is a huge is that the select coach and the high school coach are on the same page as far as the recruiting process as well.
Almost every college coach is going to call the high school coach.
Yeah, no doubt.
I mean, very rarely are they not going to. So to me, it's like, why would I not give heads up to the high school coach? Like, hey, these are the guys that are talking about this player. You may be getting phone calls, and please let me know when you get a phone call, because when they start calling the high school coach, they're getting pretty serious about recruiting this kid. Because if they're making that phone call, they're going from seeing them with us to we're actually going to call the high school and get a little more information on them. They're getting pretty serious. They're getting to the point that they're getting close to maybe pulling the trigger, figuring out what they're going to do with them. But there's been times I'm sure I've called Sherman and said, hey, this school's looking at this kid, blah, blah, blah. He never hears from that school. More than likely, they probably found another guy, So, to me, I think it helps me know how where a college is at with a kid if they make that phone call to the high school coach and take that next step.
We've got a question from one of our listeners, Mark Henry, that speaks to this, and he wants to know how involved is the high school coach with getting his kids recruited, and does he work along with the select coach? And then you'll talk about it. And does he care or allow his players to play showcase ball? So, how involved are you with the high school recruiting process for your kids, Jeff?
Oh, I'm all in. I'm 100% all in. I mean, I'm like almost a stalker on it. And so, in fact, it's funny because the college coaches like make fun of me all the time now because I'm like, he's the greatest player that's ever played. And so, like, I try to sell the tar out of my guys because they're going to fight for me. I'm going to fight for them. So, no, I mean, I guess my duty and my job why I got in this. But I think that is a case by case. We have lives too in the summer, and we have other opportunities. And, some coaches coach football if they're at smaller schools and stuff like that. And so it's a little bit tougher. And so I would say this is like the front line is a select baseball coach, 100%, because he's out on the field with them. Because again, their whole recruiting process, they don't sleep in their bed. The college recruiters don't sleep in their bed until August. They're on the road that much for 3.5 months. So that's when we're not playing.
July now.
And so that's when we're not playing. That's when we're only playing up to May and sometimes up to June. And those guys are in regional tournaments. So back to that question is like, I try to text my seniors or my juniors, and we have a meeting at the very end of the year. Like, if you ever get any notifications, call me. I can help you in any way I can. If it's an email, if it's a call. And I'm at a place where we do have a lot of guys get recruited. and I'm blessed with that. I got a lot of really good players, but at the end of the day is like, if I can help in any way, I try. That's what I do.
So I know you guys have a really good relationship, and I think that stems from, Jeff, your focus on the kids, and you see the benefit from the select side of baseball. It does not happen everywhere, and it doesn't happen with all coaches. How do we make that better, right? What can parents do if they've got a high school coach that he doesn't like him go and play for Nick? He doesn't, he's opposed to it. What can the parent do at that point in time?
That's a good question, because I'm not sure that there's anything they can do for sure that would fix it if the high school coach is already thinking that way. But the biggest thing the parents need to understand is there's your high school coaches and your select organization that are both going to impact your kid, whether it's helping them go to college or just helping them get better, but they're going to impact the kid. So they need to talk to their kids to get something out of both of them, no matter what. They may disagree with the high school coach or whatever, but that's where they're going to school. That's where they live. That's where they go. Like, they still need to go to practice every day and get something out of that practice and learn everything they can from that guy, even if it's not their favorite guy. And I think kids, they sit around the dinner table and they talk bad about, this coach because he's not playing their kid or whatever, and then that kid gets the negative attitude. And, it needs to stay positive and help the kids, or help parents need to help their kids understand that they're going to get something out of both sides, and they need to get something out of both sides. With us, they're choosing to play with us. With the high school, that's where they live. They'd have to choose to, put their house for sale and move and go somewhere else if they're not happy with it. So they just need to roll with it. And, hopefully a lot of high school coaches start getting better and better at supporting the select program, because at the end of the day, when the high school season's over, these kids are going to do more, they're going to develop more playing a lot with a select team than they are, sitting at the house, or even, they may go in the weight room. They may do some things that are, those game reps are, they can't be duplicated outside of them playing on a summer team.
Yeah, the parents that are listening here, let me give you a little story on myself. When I was 16 years old, my dad, I wasn't starting to start the season. My dad came in and just kind of ripped the coach. And you think of the anxiety that's already on a kid right now on just social media, and just the anxiety that's going on, and just life in general, just them to produce and have good grades and all that kind of stuff, and the pressures of that, and then trying to find a starting job. And then the parent, like my father, sits there and tells me that, he doesn't know what he's doing. He's this, and this. So I have to make a decision right then. And parents, just make sure you understand this. I had to make a decision of the person I love the most, my father, or the person that I have to play for. Which decision do I have to make now? If I decide the person I love the most, I'm not playing high school baseball anymore. I'm done. Because my thought process, my thinking is all negative. But if I want to go and compete and try to make a job at a position, I got to fight for my coach, my team, and do exactly what he's saying, despite what negative might be happening. So parents, your words that you say are so huge in the outcome and the production of your kid. If it's negative, I'm going to tell you, there's going to be, especially in the game that's the toughest mental game on earth, and try to produce, because all it is negative, because you get out all the time, you strike out, there's going to be negative plays, there's adversity every time in this game. And then now you're giving them another negative thought, another anxiety. It's never going to work. And it never did for me. I had to make a choice. And so therefore there's a rift between my parents for years because of just that one comment. And so I say that from experience, like, don't play them off of each other either. I think it's very important. It's easy for me to say I'm a high school baseball coach. I'm still saying that, but like, I remember that as a coach, and that's why I got into high school. I was a financial advisor when I got out of high school, or when I got out of college, and just felt like there's need to be an impact in the game. I felt there's like what we're talking about now, the same thing. Like, I just feel like the game is separating itself from high school select and even college and all that kind of stuff, that I feel like I can make a difference in that role. And I think that's it, is like, educating parents, educating kids to making right decisions, which is tough, but at the same time is like staying positive so big.
I think you hit a good point that a lot of parents don't realize, and I'll be the first one to tell you, man, I was there too, raising my kids when they were playing sports, that you see something you're not happy with and you talk about it, even if it's just you talking with your wife. I mean, the kids are in the back seat and they hear everything. So if you're bad mouthing a coach or a situation or even another player, that's going to influence the way those kids look at those people too. Exactly right, that as parents we have to pick the time and pick what we say, so that way we don't influence our kids. Let them learn for themselves about this coach, about their teammates, or even how they can be a better teammate about it. I mean, that's one thing that I think that a lot of people just don't think of. They don't think about the car ride home, even when they are specifically talking to their own kid. So Nick, what do you attribute the relationship between us and high school coaches? Do you think it's one of those to where somebody wants more credit for that kid, or I mean, what are you looking at? What is your standpoint?
Yeah, I would definitely say for sure. I mean, especially if you're talking about kids that go play in college and things like that. I think the select coaches definitely want to claim the kid, and I think sometimes the high school coach is like, well, I've got them every day, and as far as like the good programs, we do this, you promote the fact that you've got this kid going to play, he's going to Rice or whatever. You put it on Twitter, you put it on, whatever the social media is, so a high school coach is like, oh man, well, they're claiming they did that, when that guy's been with them, all fall, 5 days a week, all spring, in a position where, like Jeff says, they've created a culture and taught them how to play, which is something that's hard for us to do as a program, having them for such a short amount of time in the summer. So at the end of the day, I think some of the high school coaches kind of despise that and they don't like it, so, if we claim, put a kid out on Twitter that's like, hey, we, like one of his kids that's going to Rice, Gallant's going to Rice, we put it out there, like we're going to tag the high school on there because we think they did, had a big part of that, and it wasn't just us. We've all been working towards that for that particular kid.
Yeah, and we go hand in hand, and I think that's what a lot of people don't realize. It's not just about our organizations and what we do. I mean, and you're right, we all do it. We post when one of our kids signs, and we go to their sign-ins and we talk to the coaches there. And at that point, I think it's too late. Obviously it's pretty much a done deal. But I talk to coaches too all the time. I like when I'm coaching a high school team, I like to go and watch those kids and watch them with their high school teams. That way I can see what they're doing, what's good, what's bad, what we need to work on. Why are you doing this over there and not doing it here? Or why are you doing it, one way that could be better or not? Jeff, what could we do? You talking to me as a select coach, what is one thing that you want to see from me with our relationship to be able to grow and to help the kid out? Because ultimately that's what it's about. It's not about me. It's not about you. It's about this kid.
Yeah. I think now, since analytics have become so big in the game and science has changed, I think, and you're starting to really starting to see the impact of playing and all those kind of things of velocities and all that kind of stuff is, and spin rates and ball exit speeds and all this kind of stuff is new to the culture. And like I said, the 5 tools now, it's you got 45 tools. His spin rate's really good, but he throws 82, but it's gonna swing and miss. Or his curveball has this and it's gonna play now and this and stuff. I think, like he said at the very beginning of the show, is he called Larry Buchan at Southlake, where Larry has not seen him in 2 months, most likely, throw a pitch, just because they're playing all over. They're playing all over the country.
Right.
And he comes up to him and he says, hey, man, he just hit 93, and the last time you saw him, he was 84, 86, and that happens to me all the time. I think the communication, I think it all comes back to what we're kind of talking about is just communication and knowing our roles. I think that's very big. And going back to the signing thing, if a high school coach has a problem with it, he needs to check himself if he's claiming it, because you know what, that high school kid probably has a better relationship with that select coach. So therefore, yeah, he should claim him. I'm all for that.
Well, he should, because he got to choose him.
You know what I mean? Well, and there's a relationship there, though.
Yeah.
Like at the end of the day, it's all about relationships and building people and building community, you know? And
Right.
so I think if that's the culture and that's the case, like, yeah, that's huge, you know? I think you should claim it. I think that's very important. At the same time, we're going to claim it too. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. We're going to sit there and say, hey, yeah, we had a big part of that as well. Not to say that we're the only part. I tell all my kids, I say this, like, once they sign, I want you to thank every single coach that has coached you. Like, all the way from Little League. Like, it could be your dad. It could be your dad's best friend. You know, it could be whoever. All the way to, like, the select coach. Like, because they do a really good job. My guys do a really good job saying, hey, thanks, coach, for everything. You did a lot. And I'm like, well, yeah, I have a small part, but thank your parents, thank everybody else and stuff like that. So, because there's teachers, you know, there's so many people that are involved in that decision of getting to his dream, you know, is most of their dreams are to play college baseball or whatever. So going back to the development question is I would like, I think it's tough, but I would like to have a lot of information of like stuff they've done. If it's any kind of stats, if it's, you know, there's an organization, it's kind of run through DBU. They do a really good job of like sending stats out and sending like end of the year profiles, and then they put their thing on it, like how he progressed and, you know, and it's there, you know, and you look at it and you can take it for what it's worth and you go from that, and that's really cool, and that's really good information for me, especially at a big program that I have that I like, boom, I have that. So I would say to parents, like any information that they can give, you know, obviously you don't want to be like, oh, he had a summer, he had a 19 ERA and he couldn't throw strikes and stuff like that, you know.
But I think that's beneficial too, because that kind of lets you know where he was and what you could work on with him when you get him too, right?
Agree. And I think when he does struggle, I would love that. I would love communication when the kid's struggling, because then now you got three people in his ear to care, again, the word care, to make him better, make him more successful. Man, he's just not, you know, he's not seeing the ball right now. And so giving him maybe some external cues or vice versa. He's struggling at fielding, stuff like that. Hey, man, I'll open the field up tomorrow. You get some, you know, whatever. I think that would be huge. But again, for Nick and some of these other guys, that would have to be through a coach and him really communicating. Because they have, how many, I mean, you have guys, like, that's a good question. No, you have guys, how many guys from different high schools are on your select baseball team?
It's got to be, I mean, if we have 15 guys on, there's at least probably 8 to 12 different schools, I would think. I mean, there could be 15.
Right.
And that's the tough part, is like trying to communicate to all schools. What my guys to do is go play with the best.
Mm-hmm.
Like, if they're an average guy, I want them to play with better, like, I want them to play with the Burleson Centennial best player. I want them to play with the South Lakes better player. You know, I want them to play with the, you know, Colleyville Heritage better player, or, you know, Frisco Centennial, whoever. And so I want them to go play with the best. And that's what I try to drive every day, is like, hey, I want you to play with the best organizations. You know, we got a lot here in North Texas. And I want you to play with some of the best guys. The communication piece of like information back would be, yeah, absolutely beneficial. But that's going to be, at the same time, they're rolling so much. I don't know how that could work, but I think if you have time, you probably could.
And one thing I tell our high school kids, and it's like you said, I mean, we're all spread out. You know, we may have 13, 14 kids on our roster, and they may be from 10, 11 schools, like you said. And for me, I look at it as, hey, I want your goal to be the best player on your high school. Because if you're the best player on your high school team and I can put you all on one team, think of how much better that makes us as an organization for our high school program. You know, so I want them to be able to be the best they can be. And in turn, it's going to help everybody. And as a select coach, I don't mind sharing the credit. I don't care who gets credit for it. You know, I'm just thankful that I was able to be in that kid's life to help them achieve the goals that they wanted to achieve. And at the end of the day, you know, if they don't put the work in, they don't get the results. So ultimately, the kid is the one that deserves all of the props for it. You know, I mean, they have to go put the work in. They have to call the coaches, hey, I need extra work. I want to do this. I want to do that. Go get lessons or whatever it is they do to you know, make their craft better. So for me, I mean, I know, Nick, you and I are on the same page as far as the way we feel about our programs, the way we feel about our relationship with coaches and our kids. And obviously, we're not who we are without our kids.
Sure.
You know, so I would tell you what I would love to see is let's pick a date sometime in the summer and let's reach out to as many high school coaches as we can, as many select coaches as we can, and let's pick a venue, get there, and let's just talk baseball.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
how can we work together? How can we get better? How can we help you? You help us, and get on the same page and build a relationship, because there's not a lot of coaches on either side that's going to just pick up the phone and reach out to somebody that they don't know. It's just not going to happen, you know. But if we're able to sit down and have a discussion about what we're doing, and let's just be honest, you put that many baseball minds together, we're all going to get better.
But some egos are going to have to get checked at the door.
That's number one. I mean, you just look at it with select organizations. There's a lot of ego there, you know. I mean, and there's a lot of things behind that. But you're exactly right, Nick. What were you going to say? I'm sorry.
Well, I think if you got a meeting like that, I think the guys that didn't show up will be the guys that we're kind of talking about. That, you know, maybe the high school coach that doesn't believe in the select stuff, and the select coach that doesn't want to, you know, work with a high school coach. So yes, I think it'd be very beneficial, and it'd be interesting to see who came and who didn't show up.
We've got another question from one of our listeners, and this is going to be for Jeff Sherman again. Michael Wofford asked, do the high school coaches view their relationship with third-party instructors, pitching, hitting coaches,
Oh, good question.
especially when the mechanics being taught might be different?
Great question. Man,
I've got something on that when you're done too.
that's tough. Now, here's my view. Everything that we do is, let me use it like this. So let's think of jungle and let's think of zoo. So in a jungle, it's survival, right? You got to know your instincts. You got to go out there and perform and create, right? In a zoo, you're getting fed, you're getting, pampered, you're getting told great things, that you're awesome. You might not be a lion, but you are a lion, and those kind of things, right? And so, which plays into the positive and the confidence that we want them to have. So therefore, moving forward on there, I coach the jungle. Nick in his facility is the zoo. You know what I mean? I have the pressure. I add the pressure. I create the pressure, for them to perform at the whole level, the whole different anxiety. And that's the way I look at it as. There's no rift between it all. It goes back to me is like, yes, we're going to teach mechanics and how we do it and how the thing's going. But you know what? This game has been played for 150 years. And here's another thing is that, we can talk about mechanics and stuff like that, but it's all about the cue. It's all about the external cue that's going to guys pitching, and we're teaching this mechanic and stuff like that. He goes to Nick over there, and this guy's like, hey, pretend like your head is going through a window, whatever that may be, the external cue, and then it works. And also now the dude's throwing strikes, or vice versa. Hey, he's working with Nick, and he still hadn't produced. And then I say something like, hey, I want you to hit the ball off the scoreboard center, or I want you to break the second baseman's legs. Like that's not, like the baseball at BP, but that's our goal. Like hit hard. That external cue just worked, and it had nothing to do with the mechanical, because at the end of the day, that's how we move and stuff like that. The more I learn about science and I learn about movement and movement patterns and stuff like that, it has nothing to do with really the mechanicals. You are who you are. It's how to put them in the best fit and the best field for them to be the most successful. So to answer that question, for at Marcus High School, I love them going out. If they're blessed and financially to go get more help, I can't say no to that. So, but I know that's not at every. I mean, that I know for a fact that's not at every place. They want to, under their dictatorship.
How do you feel about? And I guess I have seen both sides of this. Being a high school coach, I see one side of it as well. But I get it. When you're in season, you don't want your kids playing for their select team. They may go get lessons or they may work out. What is your thought on that as far as when you're in season, what they do with their select team?
It's a good question. I want them completely focused on the task at hand. I'm never going to go into the select team and tell them that they can or cannot play. And I would hope that they wouldn't do that for me, because we want to be on a mission, on the same page, and doing the same thing. Now, getting work and getting extra help, I don't have a problem with. But like having a formal practice and we're playing at this time and stuff like that. Now I know Nick, they do this because we happen to go deep in the playoffs the last since I've been there 7, 8 years, and they'll have practice to get their guys going and stuff like that. And he does a real good job where he'll be like, hey, come to the practice on the Sunday, but all you're going to do is just hit. They won't, and that's fine, but I don't want them catching, throwing, learning all this junk at the same time when we're competing for a state championship. Does that make sense? So
No, yeah, I get it 100%. And I see it both ways. I think there's a huge myth that people think that it's a UIL. It's not a UIL rule.
Oh.
You can't do both. It's a preference. And being a high school coach, I agree. When we're in high school ball, I don't have a problem with him going to get lessons, going and doing things. Just be smart about what you're doing. Don't wear your arm out. Don't take a chance on getting hurt. Obviously, you don't know when or how that's going to happen, but be extra cautious during the season just because I count on you. For me, at a private school, I've got maybe 12 to 14 guys on my varsity team, if that many. And so every guy that I have is extremely valuable. If one of those guys gets hurt, then I'm in a bind. Our whole team, our whole program is in a bind, and we're trying to fight for the playoffs. I don't think parents understand that they look at it one way, and they think that the high school coach is going to look at them one way. They think that the select coach is going to look at them another way. And I've seen it. I've seen where the select coach will get ticked off at the kid or the parent or both. Well, I need him here and I need him doing that. I mean, Nick, I know you've run into that situation as well. What do you do about that?
That's not how it should be. Like the high school should be their priority until it's over. And like you said, they may come out to our practice and we'll let them hit, but we don't even let them hit unless high school, like I asked Jeff, is it okay if they come and just hit or whatever? Does this kid, maybe you pull this kid up and he's an emergency guy. He may tell me, yeah, he wants to let him do everything because we're not relying on that guy right now. We've got him on the varsity to be around it for next year, but that's where the communication, has to be there. We've had kids show up ready for practice, and I just watched their high school team win their last high school game, and kids start on the team and they want to come practice. And I'm like, what are you doing? Like, on practice? I'm like, no. You're not going to twist your ankle, and not be able to go back to practice Monday because it's middle of May and y'all are still playing. That, like, be happy you're still playing. We're happy that you're still playing because you're practicing daily and playing games about the most competitive possible games you can play in, middle of the playoffs like that with tons of fans and all that. Like, that kid's more prepared the day he shows up with us, these kids that we're practicing with, and we're trying to get all those kids to get to the point that kid in the playoffs already at. And it's not in our best interest to push a kid to do anything until they're done with their high school. We had a kid, one of the Argyle kids. They win state. We're in Arizona. Right in to let him play. He's the best player the entire weekend because they just won state, and he was ready to go. And he comes out and he lifts the team. We end up winning the entire tournament, and he closes out the championship game. Because he's as locked in as you can get.
Why are you overusing it? No, I'm just kidding.
Right? No kidding.
So let me ask you this too, from a select opinion. I mean, I know how I do things, and if I have a kid that, let's say he plays for Jeff and he's his starting shortstop, but on my select team, he's my starting center fielder or my starting second baseman, because that happens a lot. That you'll have a kid play high school, play one position, and select team, he plays a totally different position. What do you do for that kid when they're practicing with you? Not for the summer, but maybe before you're getting them ready for high school ball. Let's say you're practicing, I don't know, October, November, something like that. You're getting them some extra reps. Do you practice that kid at his position that he plays for you, or do you practice him at the position he plays for his high school?
It needs to be both. And that's another thing with this communication is, Jeff may have a need. So he may go, I'm going to find my best 9 guys. We're going to play in there. He may have 2 shortstops. They're legit guys, especially with the guy that's there that could go play college shortstop. But one of them has to play second or third or move to the outfield, something like that. So for a high school coach, he's going to take his best 9. He's going to figure out, how do I get them all in the field? For us, we're going to look at every player and go, what position you need to play that gives you the best chance to get recruited. We're going to try to play that kid at that position. They could be completely different positions for at least for a year or two. It usually ends up in the same position eventually, but I mean, there's a lot of times that, we'd have a kid playing center field that's playing shortstop in high school because his high school doesn't have a shortstop.
Right. So you give him in practices, and probably even games too, you give him reps at both positions?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Of course.
That's because I have a kid right now that is a stud, and he played for us. He played second base and was all district and all that kind of stuff. And he was on a really, really good select baseball team, and they had unbelievable middle infield, but the dude can absolutely run. So he played outfield.
Right.
So, but he played second base during the thing. But when the scouts were there, and it's usually a big game, and you're playing against a good team. Well, you're gonna have all your dudes out there. So where's he gonna play? He's gonna play the outfield. And so, he doesn't project as an outfielder. He projects as a middle infielder. Because he is a shortstop that we moved to second base, like you're saying, but he ended up playing outfield, and that kind of hurt him a little bit on recruiting, not in that facet, but because he playing outfield, and then now everybody's like thinking they label. We already have enough outfielders. I'm like, no, he's a middle infielder, and so that sometimes can be an issue with select baseball too, because they don't see us all the time. They don't know that. Oh yeah, I mean, I guarantee they look at, like, scouts look at it, and they look at the high school and they're like, okay, that's a good program. That's a good program. And they've told us that
For sure.
And they see a Marcus kid, Flower Mound kid, South. Any of those teams that have gone very competitive, and I tell people this all the time is, if you want to get recruited, go deep in the playoffs, because then you get deep in the playoffs. That's going to help every single person in this program. And
Right.
so you have to be pushed. If you're in a program that's not doing that year in, year out, you better be playing on a really good select baseball team that has a lot of good players on it, because it's not going to be as noticed if you're playing with a bunch of kids that, aren't at great schools, because that's what they look at. They look at that. They're like, oh yeah, Mark, they got a good program. And he sees them as an outfielder, and they're like, oh, he's okay. He's batting 7-8 hole for this team because they're really, really good again.
Right.
And he's our leadoff and batted over 400. So again, I think it works both ways. Nick, I wanted can you answer that question, what that fan said about instructor? Yeah.
Okay, I've got a little bit on that, because I gave lessons for a while. The first 5 years of being in the baseball world was hitting lessons and like that. And I did it for long enough that I was the guy, the instructor that kind of did the things I'm talking about. But we've got young instructors that are teaching kids. Let's just use hitting. That's what I know better. So they're teaching them this and that, and they're like, man, he's raking, he's in the cage. But an instructor's in a cage, 5 days a week doing lessons, and they may not even go on a baseball field for months. So what they're teaching them, they don't know everything about how that is translating, to a BP session on the field, how the ball's carrying, and they don't know, how competitive he is actually in a game. And I hear this a lot, and it's kind of, now looking back, because I know I said it back in the day, like, instructors will tell a kid, like, I can't believe you're not starting. Like, what? You should be playing. And what the instructor doesn't know is he doesn't know the other guys. All he knows is that kid, and that's his kid. And he loves that kid, right? But he doesn't know the other kid that plays second base, that Marcus. He doesn't know any of the other kids. All he knows is his one kid. So, I think it's a big mistake for them, and it's almost like when the parents talk negatively about a high school or whoever coach, and it's the same idea with the instructor. The instructor's like, oh, he should definitely be starting, and blah, blah, blah. Well, no, unless you're at their practices and you're around the kids on that team on a day-to-day basis, you don't know who should be starting. There's just no way.
Well, and then those instructors don't know what's going on in a live game though either.
Correct.
What you do in a cage or what you do working one-on-one is totally different as to what's going on during game time.
Yep.
And that's one thing that I think they don't realize. But then again, going back to the instructor, he wants to show his worth as well. Why the parent looks at it, why is my kid going like it's the instructor's fault now, right? Because everybody wants to place blame on somebody, because it can't be my kid's fault, right? I'm doing everything I need to do. I'm spending all this money. Why is he not starting on his varsity program?
Yeah, for sure.
There's very few of those that do that. I will say that.
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's cut up now where it's not. But I will say that I know we're beating up on some instructors, but like some of the best influences in the game for me was an instructor that never saw me play, and he just cared about like what I did, and he asked the right questions, and he got me to play at a high level. He never, and again, I think we should safeguard if you're a parent and you start hearing that stuff, you don't need to be around that guy because that guy's not helping or empowering your kid to be better.
Yeah, and it goes the other way too. There's high school coaches that are like, we don't want you taking lessons, and it's one of those. If a high school coach, sees the benefit of, and knows where they're going to get their lessons and what they're doing, that would help him not have to say something like that. But there's so many instructors out there, and there's guys that say the things, negative to those players that they don't want to get in the middle of that. So they're just like, look, we know what we're doing. We're hitting BP 5 days a week. We've got goals when we're hitting BP. We know exactly, you don't really need to go do that. And they don't want an instructor, start, right before district, making some kind of adjustment on a player that's gonna, take a month for him to really get it, because you don't just get it.
Yeah, and I think instructors are another one that needs to be included on what we're doing because, again, everything that we're talking about has to do with communication. Communication, and it's all for the middle part is the athlete. You got the high school coach, you got the select coach, instructor, and if we're not all communicating, then we're not doing what's best for that kid.
Yep.
And I think that's one thing that we do need to touch on because I don't give lessons to every kid I coach. You don't give lessons to every kid you coach.
I don't do any.
They have to get that from somewhere. And if I talk to a kid and I'm real big about tweaking. I don't want to change everything. Let's tweak it. Let's make it better where it's at. But I'll also ask, what is your instructor telling you? Because I don't want it to be counterproductive and then you're wasting money. But at the same time, I want to get that kid where they need to be. And we may have different philosophies on it, me and the instructor, but I think we need to work together with the instructors as well. I think that's a big part of it.
Yeah. The best instructors are actually out coaching also, because they're getting out of the cage and they're around the game, on a regular basis. So they're seeing how kids play, and if you've got a kid that is taking lessons from a certain guy and that guy's coaching it, and that kid can play on that guy's team, that's the best scenario you can come up with.
Right.
Because now when they go into the cage on Tuesday night, he just saw 15 at bats over the weekend and is going to know exactly what's going on. Is there actually a mechanical issue, or are we talking about some timing issues, or whatever? And the problem with walking in the cage and telling an instructor what happened over the weekend, the dad's like, oh, well, he's out, he's dropping his back shoulder, one of those typical, whatever. And at the end of the day, he may have just been off time. If you're not on time, the mechanics will break down, and a dad from the stands and the kids, sometimes they don't have any idea that that's actually the issue. So there's a whole lot of value if your instructor were coaching you on the weekends, and that's a few and far between opportunity that doesn't present itself a whole lot.
So go ahead. No,
I was going to say this. The thing that's going real well that I would advise to parents and to instructors and to ourselves is like we have so much technology on our phone.
Mm-hmm.
So just filming the game and giving that to the instructor, and then like vice versa. I think the way we can communicate is through the phone, like not like like a video, like, hey, here's Johnny, he's doing really, really well. This is what we worked on today. What do you think?
But you never see parents videoing their kids doing things. Do you?
Oh, geez. It's actually a great recruiting.
Yeah, it does help a lot.
Yeah, I mean, it's seriously like, I would say that like,
Just turn the volume down.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
But no, I think, if you are a parent out there, like I would video, I think there's great feedback on that for the kid, and obviously, for if you go to an instructor or you go to a coach or even a recruiting, like you can get some really good stuff because, you can see his speed, you can see so many different things.
So I'll ask this question to both of you guys, and Jeff, you can answer it first. Have you ever had a kid come to you and say, can I play? This is what I play on my select team.
All the time. And I tell them this, I said, I want you to play all of them. And I said, and here's what I do. It's funny, we're in freshman trials right now. I had 6 guys go to second base. All right. Now, I guarantee all those second basemen played shortstop, but they looked over and like, oh, that guy's really, really good.
Go over here.
I'm going over here because I can play. And I go back and I talk to them like, hey guys, I want all 9 of my guys to be a shortstop, And, so I was like, I want you to be the best athlete. I was like, don't be a right side. I make fun of them all the time. But I was like, don't be a right side guy, be a left side guy. And I kid around with that because, we kind of have a little joke within them. I'm a middle infielder guy. So I was kind of using that as an analogy. But like, seriously, be like, I want my guys to be the best at where they're going. And then we'll decide. And they got to be willing to go. And at my program, it's a little bit easier to say that because I have numbers. Because when you have the law of large numbers, like they got kind of abide into that culture and kind of how things are going because they want to get on the field. They don't want to sit on the bench like, hey, I play third base and I got the All-American third baseman. And he's like, I'm not playing first base. I'm not moving. Well, dude, you're either cut or you're not going to, it's like one of those things, you kind of got to think through it. So to answer that question is, yes, we do get that. It happened yesterday. It's like, Coach, I play shortstop, but I need to go second base. So it's kind of a little bit different, but I play right field, but I want them to play all. And so especially young, and then we kind of move that. Just like I told you, our second baseman played outfield in the summer. We want them to be athletic.
I had a kid that played for me, and he came out to tryouts. This was probably about 5-6 years ago. You could tell by looking at him, he was an athlete. He could play it. And I asked him, I said, so what position do you play? He said, third base. I said, what else? He said, just third base. I said, all right, go to third base. And hitting him ground balls, and he's got good hands. He's smooth. He's got a strong arm. Moved him to shortstop. Same thing. Made every play. Looked really good. Footwork looked really good. Moved him to second base. Exact same thing. Everywhere I put him, he looked really good. So I brought him back in. I said, what position do you play? He said, third base. I said, what did you do at short? What did you do at second? I said, what position do you play? He's like, Coach, I don't know. I just want to play baseball. That kid we ended up bringing him on our team. He ended up being our starting shortstop and went and played some JUCO baseball.
That's awesome.
Great kid, but it's just sometimes these kids don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know what's best for them. And I'm not saying that we always know what's best for them, but one thing I would tell kids and parents is be open-minded. Just because you don't start at the position you think your kid should start this year, maybe next year he'll be your starting shortstop, second baseman, whatever, once that kid graduates or somebody gets hurt, somebody gets sick, maybe he's in a slump and you need somebody to put there. I mean, stay open-minded about what positions you play. And I'll pose that same question to you, Nick.
So, yeah, I mean, y'all are right on. I mean, what position they play, we kind of talked about it earlier, but, I feel like it's our job to try to do two things. Number one, let's figure out who, what's their best shot at playing in college. Because if you're playing with us in our high school program, hopefully that's your goal. And then, number two, where do you need to play to be ready for your next varsity season or when you get to varsity? So that's another communication between us that needs to happen where it's like, look, I got him playing center, where do you need him? Like, oh, he's probably going to play second for me. Like, okay, well, I need to get him some reps there. I'll still play him in the center for his recruiting, and make it about both. And when it's the same for, if he didn't get recruited to that position and it's where he can play in high school, that's easy. But it's the other ones that make it a little tougher. And when we're forming teams, we may have two good teams in the same age group, and Johnny wants to play with his buddies on this team, but there's 3 other middle infielders. I could put him on this other team that's really competitive, and he could probably be the shortstop where he needs to get ready for his high school season. And that's another thing parents need to look at is, what are we putting him on a team that's going to get him ready for his next step, whatever that next step is. And the parents also need to understand that what position they think that their son should be playing is not necessarily going to be the best position for that kid. As they grow, their position can change. Because you don't know how they're going to grow. They could grow really fast. They could not grow much, but there's certain body types that fit certain positions better, which goes to what kind of athlete they are and things like that. So it's like one of the dads and his kid was in there the other day. The kid's at TCU. He went from high school, went to Howard for 1 year, and then he went straight to TCU after 1 year as a third baseman. He's supposed to play center field now. He got faster, he got more athletic. Now he's playing the outfield. And his dad's like, I would have never guessed it. I'm like, well, of course you wouldn't, but are you going to argue with that? Because I'm sorry, he wasn't at Howard, or whatever. But would
And he went to South Lake Carroll.
Yeah.
And beat us.
yeah,
at the regional
you know what I'm
finals.
talking about. Anyways, but looking back on it, if we would have told his dad like, hey, he's an outfielder when he's a sophomore, they might not have liked it. But
Right.
if I was like, if we would have told him that he's going to play center field for TCU someday, he probably would be like, oh, okay, well, let's go ahead and move him out there,
Mhm.
So they just need to be open-minded, and all 9 positions are really important when you get to the high school level. When they're 12 and you're like, oh, I want my son to play infield, well, he may be better suited for the outfield. And, just because mama can't see him as good because he's in the right field, that's not a good reason to say you want him to play short,
Yeah, we've a couple of more questions from some of our listeners, but I do kind of want to talk about why we're all able to be here, and that is, Travel Sports Baseball is kind enough to host this podcast, to bring this to the listeners, and they're not scared to talk about select baseball and get into real honest talk about what goes on out there. Want to thank Nick Heitz here with go ahead and give yourself a plug about your organizations and your business.
So, Sticks Baseball Club, we've got a branch down in the Cleburne area, and then our main teams are where we started was in the Mid Cities area, and we're currently in Grapevine at TPA, which is our indoor facility that the Sticks work out of. The facility is actually designed for all players and any player. It's not a Sticks thing. It's just it's a good spot that we found home for our guys, and we're starting to form teams, farther north up into, from Flower Mound up to Frisco and up that direction as well. And, we're trying to put our kids in a position where they're on a competitive team if they're in the program. Not, we're not going to take on everybody. So
awesome. We've got a question. This again, question for Coach Sherman. These guys are interested in the high school baseball world. How important is how a high school kid acts on the field, so when college coaches call to cross-reference district opponents? Does this happen? And how important is how they act on the field?
Oh, 100%. Yes, they cross-reference. Our schools that are here in DFW that we're talking about, UTA, DBU, and TCU, those schools will call every single. I mean, I'm serious. Like DBU, probably they watch them probably 17 times, and they probably talk to 55 coaches, select coaches, all the way to high school coaches, before they even had any interest of moving that guy in. They know every detail and how they move. TCU does the exact same thing. Obviously, UTA does it too. They will scout a guy in every area. So that goes back to the scouting and character and stuff like that. Social media is huge, people. So like, and I would say this, like, if you don't have one, then you're weird. So like, I would definitely at least have one and post positive things. That's about all I can say on that. And,
Like positive things too.
everything. Yeah. Everything comes around. So I mean, like, yeah. So to answer that question, it's well rounded. Yeah. So it goes back to like act right and do the right thing. And so another thing is like there are second chances. Like I know there's kids that act like an idiot because they're passionate. They want to win. They might throw their helmet or at the end of the game or throw their bat and because they're mad and stuff like that. I don't know if that literally labels them as a bad apple. And that's why I think they cross-reference so many different people. But yeah, I think it does have a thing if they call me and they say, hey, what about this kid, at Southlake that, that did something, and I'll be like, oh man, that guy was awesome. He shook my hand at the very end of the game, and those things matter.
But at the same time, you talking about throwing your helmet or your bat and things like that. I know that Nick and I will talk to our guys and, before the season, during the season, after the season about how they act, because college coaches and scouts, sometimes they only have one opportunity to see that kid. And if that's what they see from the kid, then that's the lasting impression that they have. And a lot of times they don't want to deal with it.
For sure. And that can, they can't dig out of that hole sometimes. Kids not acting correctly or not playing the game right is the way I would say it.
Mm-hmm.
College coaches can't stand it. And they see it one time, they're like, that's not my guy. And that guy could be really good. One one of our 2020 hitters could absolutely rake, and he got slow played by a lot of colleges because he didn't hustle, he didn't get down the line, he didn't do some of the easy things that anybody can do. You don't have to be good to do the things that he wasn't doing. So, I think it means everything.
And Coach, one thing I want to revert back to with your high school program, and what do you tell a kid that doesn't make your team? What is it that, whether it's why he didn't make it, whether there's advice or whatever you say to that kid that didn't make your program, just give me an example of something that you would talk to a kid that didn't make it.
Great question. I cut about 100, 125 kids, a year, a normal year, because kids, that we have about 40 to 50 to 60 to up to 80 freshmen at tryout, plus they all come back. We get probably a third to 2/3 of guys come back. And I think it's because that's what we do. We give them, so how I do it is like, hey, when we cut them, I was like, hey, I don't need an email from your parents. I'm just going to delete it. I was like, I want you. And then once your parent, or once I tell you exactly where your weaknesses are and why you didn't make it, and we go through that, your parent doesn't like it, I'll meet with them. We'll have a good conversation and we'll be collaborative and we'll get it going. It's something interesting. I was just, before we even started this, I was telling you, like, I had a kid that got cut his freshman, sophomore year, kept coming out as junior. I'm like, oh, geez, here he is. The kid now is pitching at University of Houston.
Wow.
Ended up beating Flyer Mountain in the 3rd round, ended up going in the 4th round, got beat by Arlington Martin. But the kid absolutely just dealt and just kept working and grew and got stronger. And that's usually the problem as freshmen is like usually the strong kids, because they matured early, make it, and then all of a sudden you just start seeing kids. And we're gonna have a kid right now that got cut freshman, sophomore year. He's gonna be a dude on our JV team, even as a junior. But he's gonna be really, really good. We just have a really good senior group this year. But he grew 4 inches. He's bad exit, just a simple thing. A bad exit. He was 81 last year. He's 96 now.
Wow.
Things like that.
And do you ever have kids that maybe won't make your team, but you'll stick with you guys? Have you ever had
Absolutely, all the time, especially injured left-handed guys. Yeah, if you're a left-handed pitcher and you're injured and you can't throw strikes right now, hey, you're staying in. Or left-handed hitter, I'm kind of a little selfish to the left-handed side, but can't get right. If they're a good kid and they work hard, I'll always give them an opportunity. We have about 40 managers, I swear, on our team. My coaches hate it, but it's like, again, it goes back to why we're doing this. We're here for the kid.
Right.
And the last thing I want to say is, to finish up that question you just said, I'll give a story about Royce Lewis and how he got signed number 1 by the Padres. And you talked about we talked about parent, like how kids get recruited and like do they cross-reference and stuff like that. So he was number 9 on the list of they're the first overall pick, and he was number 9. So obviously they have to see him, so they're scouting him. The GM comes and watches him at Jacera in California, watches him play, and he just wanted to see him. He gets there 2.5 hours before the game, the GM does. He gets there, he watches him come off they have like a little mountain that comes down into, he's the first one on the field. He sees him, like how he interacts with his teammates. He sees how he leads them in their stretches. He sees how he throws and the intent of it. Took ground balls before the game, and he walked out and says, "That's our guy." Never saw him throw a base, or never saw him hit. Never saw him field a ground ball in a live game. Just saw him how he approached the game, and he was the 9th guy going into that weekend, and he ended up being the 1-1 guy 4 years ago, and now he's one of the highest prospects in minor league baseball. Royce Lewis. And so, like, I go back to it's like it is about how you act. It is about what you do on and off the field. It's very important, especially at these major colleges, because they can't afford to have a guy that doesn't run hard down to first base or whatever. That shouldn't be coached.
We can't preach enough how much we talk to our guys about people are watching you from the time you get out of your car to the time you get in it, the way you carry yourself, the way you interact with your teammates, your coaches, your parents. Those things, I say it all the time, and I'll continue to say it. And hopefully, if it helps one kid, then I'm happy.
Mm-hmm.
Those are things that are so important. Being a good teammate, people don't realize how far that goes. It goes a long way with the high school, with the select, with going forward, whatever they do. I'll ask this question kind of tongue in cheek. How do you feel about all the rings that kids get at 10 and 11 years old. Does that figure into your factor on making your team?
Oh, my son. Hey, this is like my son. My son plays rec baseball in FMYSA. He won the 8U championship. My son comes up to me, no lie, this happened a year ago. Comes up to me and he gets his ring because they won the championship. Rec baseball now. This isn't like Rattlers baseball at FMYSA. This is rec. He loves the game. He's working on his game at the same time. He's grinding. But they win the championship and he comes up to me with like no fill and goes, "Hey, Dad, I got a ring before you did." So,
Did you grab the ring and just chunk it across the field?
You jerk.
No, we do want to thank you guys for coming out. I know it takes time and you're about to get ready with your season. And, you know, I definitely want to continue to keep open lines of communication with you as any other coaches. If any coaches are listening on here, you know, please message myself or Nick or Don. You know, we want to get better as coaches. We want to do better things for our kids and, you know, give them a platform to where they can go and play the game they love the right way. And, you know, Nick's been around for a long time. I respect Nick a lot and what he does with the Sticks organization. And he's known me for a while too. And I think we agree with a lot of the things that we do and how we do it. And I can tell you at the end of the day, we just want what's best for these kids.
Yep, absolutely.
So Coach, is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we head out here?
No, I just think that, you know, high school coaches, and I think this is awesome that we're talking collaborative, you know, talk. I think it needs to be more. We need to get into it. We need to get into the depth of it, of why. And it comes back to communication, I think, at the end of the day. If we can be more on our end and on their end at the same time. But I think if we're all growth and try to be better, I think we'll see a lot more good out of what's going on instead of this rift that we feel out. And who's at fault in this is the kids at the end of the day.
Yeah, they're
Because
the
of
ones who
pride.
suffer from it. Yeah, you're exactly right. And, you know, I definitely think we need to get that meet together one way or another, as many head coaches as we can, or any coaches, you know, on either side. And, you know, it's only going to be better for kids. You know, I want to thank Joey for being here. I mean, he's my co-host, but he runs the USO officials, and they do a great job working with travel sports, and they cover a lot of fields. How many umpires you got now?
We have 300. I've got next Wednesday, we start our brand new umpire training. And I've got over 100 guys signed up. It's pretty exciting. It's the largest class we've ever had. So it's great to see people wanting to give back, get into officiating, and give back to the kids in the game.
Yeah, and if you guys out there want to be an umpire or want to learn some things, reach out to Joey. And also, you know, if you have scrimmage games coming up and you need some umpires out there, that's a great opportunity for Joey to get some of his guys some work before the season hits hard. So definitely reach out to him and he'll let you know what the next step in is as far as that goes. Nick, anything you want to close out with?
I think we've covered it. I think a big thing for parents is that they can just, you know, if your kid's 10, 11, 12 years old, understand that, you know, not all the kids are going to be lucky enough to make the high school team. And right now, I think there's a lot of pressure put on the kids, and there's a lot of negativity. So, like, just try to enjoy it. But you know, help your kid have fun playing baseball. You know, and if he's lucky enough to play in high school, then this whole thing was worth all the time and effort.
Yeah, and we don't, you know, at the same time with that, parents, don't fault your kid if they don't make the team. I mean, when you got a program like Flower Mound Marcus and they got 200 guys coming out, I mean, they can only keep so many guys. I mean, sometimes it's not the kid's fault. Sometimes it's a numbers deal. But I know we're about to hit the season hard. I'm excited for the new season with our program and how we're building, and we're looking at building a couple of facilities here pretty soon. I've been looking at properties, so I'm more in Dallas, so I'm not near you. So, so we'll both be fine as far as that goes. You know, my organization is Marucci Elite Texas, and I run all DFW. I've got some teams out of Lubbock and Dallas, so we're kind of spread out. But we just want to, you know, I'll tell you, for me personally, we're not for everybody, and you know, we want kids that want to work and want to play ball and have a good time doing it. And Nick's the exact same way. I know that he has a great organization. He works with a lot of kids, and you know, I will tell parents, find a place where you're happy, find a place where your kid's happy. if you're happy there, stay there. You know, it doesn't have to be with me. It doesn't have to be with whoever. It's all about your kid. And that's, I kind of equate it to dating. Be selfish. You know, what am I going to get out of it? What's best for me? Again, thank you, Travel Sports Baseball. Go to travelsports.com, sign up for those tournaments that are coming up, and
PlayNCS.com.
PlayNCS.com. I'm sorry. And then you'll see the Travel Sports logo on there. So, Don, thank you for everything that you do. And we'll be back next week. Next week, I believe we're on it Wednesday. We'll get the signs out and let you guys know who we'll have on the show and what we're covering. Thank you for listening. Until next week, enjoy baseball. It's right around the corner.
Jesus.
Okay, they can't hear us on the podcast, but we're still live. So.
Oh, good. So they can see me in that picture right there.
Yeah.
Let me turn everything off, and you guys can see.
Oh, yeah, you were front and center.
Yeah. There you go.
They tell your head shiny.